All right, folks, here we are, the third day of the Lake Hartwell FLW tournament. This week is all about the spawn. You know, when I showed up here this week, I didn't think the fish would be spawning this early. The locals that I've talked to the last couple of days, they've never seen it. This is the most uncharacteristic spawn fishing tournament. But as you can see, everything, the pears and everything are blooming around here. The water temperature is at that point, so the fish are spawning. Right out of the gate, we've caught up with the leader, John Cox. There's a couple things that I've noticed about kind of what John is doing and how he has separated himself from the field this week. For one, I talked to him this morning. He says he's not stopping. He hasn't stopped at all, practice or the tournament, unless the fish is 3 pounds. So that in itself right there is putting him in a class of fish, you know, well above everybody else, because so many times in sight fishing you see a 2-pounder and it looks pretty good down there in the water, and when you're not catching a lot of keepers, you know, you spend a little bit of time with it. John has not stopped this whole time unless it's been 3 pounds. The other thing I've noticed is that he's staying in just a little bit tinted water. So many people in sight fishing tournaments, they run straight down to the dam and where the water is the cleanest and therefore the easiest to see. Well, he can still see the fish here. It's brown, it's just got a little tint to it, and that may be separating himself. And the other thing about John, as you notice, he's in an aluminum boat. You know, he is really keen on his senses. It's kind of like if you take a sense away from a human being, they make the most of what they got. Well, that's John. I've known him for a long time. He's a great guy, one of the nicest guys on tour. And he really, in that aluminum boat, he knows he can't run all over the lake like a lot of guys can. So he makes the most with what he's got. He's a very efficient angler. He's very good. He just started on a fish right here. He pulled up, he made a couple blind casts to it, and he caught the male. Or he may just caught a fish. You know, it's springtime. The fish are running up and down the bank. He may have just caught a small fish. Let me back off of his fish because I don't want to get too close to it here. But he made a few casts. He caught a little one, and then he wasn't able to catch the biggest one. I asked him if he could see it. He says that I don't know. You know, there's a lot of green algae type stuff, growth growing on the bottom, old slimy stuff. That's why it's tough to fish anything on the bottom like a Carolina rig right now on all these points. In some places you can, but you know, it kind of messes with your eyes a little bit. So he's not able, he's just kind of going down, letting it rest just a little bit. He's been making repeated casts with look like a wacky worm and just trying to get that fish to bite. And that's the big key. That's the wild card of the day. Last night everybody was saying, is it going to get too cold? The cloud cover, is that going to change things up? Well, when I got out, walked out of the room and to my truck this morning, it was warm. Not warm, but it was warm enough for these fish to stay on the bed. They shouldn't be pulling off today. These guys should be able to catch them. Clouds is the one thing that's going to really affect them. As you can see, John's been here 30 minutes on this one fish. He hasn't been able to make it bite. If he could see it, he could probably catch that fish in 5 minutes, because a lot of times in bed fishing, they don't have to want to bite, you know, but you can make them bite. You can aggravate them into it. So he's coming back now. He's going to check it out. Stay tuned. We'll catch up with him here in a few minutes to see if he's caught the fish.